at the end of the year, when you do your tax report, right? And I would strongly suggest that you do that. You could actually use those fees which you've paid throughout the months and reduce your taxes.
Okay, so Muza, once again, thank you to the third episode of our German career coach series.
Yeah.
Great to have you again. And it's great to have your knowledge and your insight. You've lived in Germany for a long time now, and you've lived in so many different parts of Germany, and you're a career coach. So you have a really good idea of what salary you need to live a good quality of life in Germany. This is kind of a big question, but how much would you estimate you need to earn per month? What kind of salary should you have to live a decent life in Germany?
That's a good question. I've read a research just recently where an average American would feel him or herself with 100K per year earning salary as a rich person. And I've asked on TikTok the same question in German. And I asked this question and said, okay, Americans feel like they earn 100K and they could feel themselves rich. What do you think? I've got a couple of replies, and the reply was, this is a middle income salary, which segregates those people who have actually answered and have no reservations to answer that, particularly on a higher upper end of the middle class. But the Germany is like a relatively huge country. So it all depends. Even within the area of 20 kilometers, things can change extremely.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So if you live in Munich and you have a base salary of 2,000 euros gross, right? You would most probably not have enough money to survive within that city, because the median rent is already 1,000 plus.
Yeah.
So, and with the same salary, if you go to cities like Gelsenkirchen, which is approximately 40 kilometers away from a city of Cologne, you would live quite comfortably with that salary, because median rent there is approximately 300 euros. So it all depends where you live.
That's very true. I think anyone would kind of expect that in any country. Naturally, you're going to be paying a lot more to live in a big city. Housing Anywhere actually does rent indexes every quarter of the different cities that we rent from. And it is kind of interesting to see how much it varies city by city or place by place, because it's not just cities we rent from, but it's very interesting to see how it varies across the country, across Germany, across the Netherlands. There's huge differences depending on where you go. So naturally, 2K in one place is going to be a lot. 2K in anywhere else might not be. 2K in Munich is obviously not a lot. But would you say that in Munich, if you're working in Munich, you probably have a higher expectation for your salary in Munich too?
Absolutely. I mean, the average salary, which is obviously not the number I take all the time, because the average salary is like balancing out throughout the whole entire Germany, which lies approximately between, I don't know the exact numbers from the latest data, but approximately 3,700. The net, it's a gross salary. So after taxes, depending on your tax level, write off approximately 32 to 45% of it. And then you will be left, let's say, with 3,700, let's sum it up to 50% of it as in your hand. And then if you're a single person who's living in a shared apartment with other people or in a smaller apartment, you most probably will not be able to live in Munich. But with the same salary, you could live maybe around Berlin. You could live maybe around Cologne. You could live around Düsseldorf. Maybe you could live also in Hamburg or nearby Hamburg. So it depends. But also, you need to look at it. Many people, many young generations are living with their parents at the moment. So they're saving up lots of money on their housing. And at the same time, having excess cash to spend, because this all money is in their hand.
Yeah,
I can tell you what I spend. My average spend per month is approximately 2,100 net. But because I am already married or let's say with a kid, right? So I have a bigger expenditure with a car and so on and so forth, and specific quality of life which I've built throughout the years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it also depends if you have your own housing, like you bought an apartment or you bought a house, or you're renting a place, right? So it varies. And I can live comfortably with that amount. I can obviously live also with less amount in the city where I live. But it means I would need to cut back on specific parts. Obviously, with the inflation at the moment
Yeah.
going up and skyrocketing. In bank terms, they count approximately 500 for pocket money, 1,200 euros for approximately all the general expenses, which is also outdated. General expenses as a fixed term expenses, with meaning your rent, your insurances, and so on and so forth. So they're coming up with a lump sum of 1,700 euros, should be more or less enough. It also depends on the region, but generally, this is the amount which you could expect to live comfortably.
That seems crazy low for
Yeah,
like a general number. That seems quite, that's probably
it
a
is.
thing that it's kind of interesting, but also a little bit alarming that the banks think that that's enough. Because at least I suppose I live in Amsterdam, but my rent is quite low. I got lucky with where I live, and I definitely spend more than that in a month, and my rent is like a fraction of my costs. So yeah, that's crazy. But then
Yeah,
I suppose
and
Germany, it's different. Germany is a different ballgame than Amsterdam.
absolutely. And these are the numbers you need to look at. And obviously, there are cheaper cities where you can obviously get a cheap apartment or a relatively affordable apartment with a good price and do a remote work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can reduce your expenditure to the bare minimum. But
Yeah.
you got to ask yourself, if you want to live in that city, if you're comfortable shifting your quality to that space, right?
Yeah.
I mean, with a lots of emerging hybrid works and so on and so forth, we are more flexible right now. If you're not in an industry where the production is, if you're not the production employee or production person who's working at the specific place, and you need to be on site. But 1,700 would be something which is a bare minimum, in my opinion, as well. Last year, I did a talk with the bank, and we discussed about the expenditure and so on and so forth. And this is the amount which they spit out on my paperwork. And I said, 1,700 seems a little bit low for my expectations, but this is a net amount they're talking about, and we are talking about the gross amount. So I think if you earn 3,700, 3,800, which is an average in Germany gross, which gives you approximately 1,700 to 2,200, depending on your tax level, should be enough to live in an average city, but definitely not in cities like Munich, definitely not in a high expenditure cities like in Hamburg, maybe.
So across Germany, you'd probably say, like, generally speaking, across Germany, 3.7K is probably pretty decent. But if you're going to a city like Munich, you should be expecting and probably ask for a little bit more, because your gross and your net are two very different things. You're obviously paying a lot of tax. And speaking of tax, actually, are there any unexpected kind of taxes that I think a lot of people don't anticipate? So when I moved to Amsterdam, I knew when I got a job I would have to pay tax on my wages. I didn't realize I'd have to pay waste taxes, municipality taxes, water taxes, because maybe it is a thing in Ireland. I never had to pay them in Ireland. I wasn't aware of them. But yeah, it was definitely a bit of a shock to me when I first came over, at the amount of random taxes that I had to, not random, but taxes that I was unaware of that I had to pay. So are there any of those kind of taxes in Germany that you think an expat might not be aware of or might not think of when moving over?
One particularly is definitely, but those taxes you've mentioned before, they're usually included in your extra cost. So, I mean, housing in Germany is like a little bit different, right? I mean, you've got a cold, they call it kalt, which is in a cold amount, like initially only per square meter amount which you pay for the housing or for four walls. And then on top of it comes like administrative fees, like a management fee of the companies and so on and so forth. And usually in that fees, they have already included those taxes or billed you those taxes further from the owner of the apartment to you. And usually you don't notice them. But one particular thing which comes afterwards is, as soon as you've registered to the apartment, you will get a kind of a fee for television and internet access, which is not big amount, but it is like a really controversial. If you don't own a TV, people assume that they will not pay that, but this is not really true, because it is like a broadcast fee and you pay approximately 18 euros per quarter. So this is the amount you would need to expect. And then obviously if you have a dog or animals, which also are taxed. And on top of it, obviously when you buy an apartment yourself, then you would need to pay your landlord type taxes, local city taxes for occupying the land and so on and so forth.
So when you're renting, it's typically included in your admin fees that you're paying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Kind of wish they did that in Amsterdam, I'm not going to lie. Would save me a lot of hassle because you have to pay for them separately. It's a nightmare. You can get out of them, but you have to jump through hoops. So it's actually quite clever to just include it in the rent and I guess put the onus on the landlord. Maybe it's not a good thing for landlords, but
the good part is, Ellie, because at the end of the year, when you do your tax report, right? And I would strongly suggest that you do that. You could actually use those fees which you've paid throughout the month and reduce your taxes, because those are the fees for external services. So you can deduct them to a certain percentage, to a certain amount, and then deduct them from the paid taxes from your salary or the earned taxes, and then reduce them at the end of the year. And you might even get lucky and get taxes back.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah, it is.
Would a lot of people end up overpaying taxes because they're paying
absolutely
those taxes included in their admin fees and then also their salary taxes?
Absolutely. Like, for example, I'm not subscribed to a church or something like that because I have a different religion. I'm a Muslim. And automatically, when I arrived, I was actually kind of put on a shelf to pay church taxes. But I don't pay church taxes. So you can actually go and say, hey, I'm not going to pay church taxes, and then remove that from your tax report as well. And then there is a tax also called like subordination, or like a help tax, which is taxation between the West and the East Germany. It's kind of like a balancing out the balance sheet between both sides after the reunion of Germany.
Yeah.
And which is not much, but it is also kind of taxed, because if you live in the West Germany, you pay the taxes, and if you live in the East, you don't pay.
Okay, so you will also, if you live in West Germany, you're probably going to have some subordination tax to pay as well, but it's quite low. Do you have any idea how much it is?
I'm not quite sure, but I pay like, I don't know, 5 to 7 euros per month, but it depends on the salary. So
yeah, okay,
it's like a particular percentage.
Yeah. And then church taxes, that's mad to me. You have to pay church taxes like as soon as you get to Germany, or like when you register your...
Well, it depends on the religion you give on your registration papers. Okay. And then if you don't include that, because when I arrived, they didn't have a box to tick for Muslims.
That's crazy.
And it is, yeah. So I left it out. I mean, I left it empty, and then I was like, put into a Catholic church taxes grade. So
that is crazy to me. So if you're not religious, if you don't like go with any religion, you can obviously get out of those taxes. You just have to probably do so afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah, you need to tell them at the time of your registration, and because when you come to Germany, you register at a specific place. You will also get a tax number, and you will get also social security number, and so on and so forth. So in that particular application process, you would need to mention that.
So you let them know when you're registering if you are of a particular religion or if you're of no religion. I can't. That's mad. I'm Irish, and I don't think we pay church taxes. Like, we're so religious.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever paying church taxes here, unless it's just included in my salary and I'm not aware of it. That's crazy. Yeah. Okay. That's really thrown me, I have to say. I can't believe, because to me, Germany is so modern and like progressive. I can't believe that church taxes are a thing. Obviously, the church still needs money, but I thought it would be more of like a donation kind of a situation.
Yeah, well, I know it also from Muslims. I mean, we don't pay a mosque tax, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we donate money, and it is like voluntary, right? So they have a pretty old taxing system, which is kind of in a reform at the moment, and then gets hopefully modernized and so on and so forth. But Germany is like a federation, right? I mean, there are plus and minuses. It's like a federal law is not always the same law which is in the country, applied broadly. So it has pluses and minuses. Obviously, I don't know. Before I came to Germany, I never paid taxes. So
okay. Oh yeah, because you lived in Dubai before.
Yeah, exactly.
Dubai is completely tax-free.
Exactly. So
other end of the
I'm
scale.
fine paying taxes as long
Yeah.
as it helps to keep the
Yeah,
roads
of
safe
course.
and so on and so forth.
I
It's
think
all fine.
paying taxes is a no-brainer when you can see the impact of what you're paying. I don't think
Absolutely.
I definitely don't mind paying taxes either when I can see like the impact of the taxes that I'm paying, especially in the Netherlands because the public transport is so good and it's so in touch. And I'm sure it's kind of the same in Germany that you
Yeah.
see a lot of the impact of the taxes that you're paying. And then you're kind of like, okay, you can take my money. That's fine. I don't mind.
Well, I mean, the roads don't get fixed themselves, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. People have to be, and teachers and policemen and all those people. What are some other costs? So we spoke about taxes and kind of unexpected taxes that people might have to encounter, such as church taxes. But what are some other unexpected costs that people might have while moving to Germany? I know health insurance is mandatory in Germany. It isn't in a lot of countries, so that's probably something that a lot of people kind of get a bit of a shock about when they first move over.
Well, you need to look at the health insurance a little bit different perspective. I mean, you always have two sides of it. Your health insurance, you pay only the particular sum, and then half of it, let's say, and then the half of it pays your employer. And as soon as you've breached the amount of, I think at the moment 68,000 K per year, you are on a voluntary health insurance, which means you can choose to go private health insurance, or you could choose to stay. I mean, it's not a choice actually. It's like you have two different health insurances. You've got a private health insurance. You've got a kind of mandatory health insurance. So as soon as you've breached the 68,000, I think, K per year salary, which is on a gross level, you are kind of put into a box of people who can afford the private health insurance. So private health insurance is obviously way cheaper than a health insurance, which is like because you pay only merely the half of it. You would need to pay for the services upfront, maybe. But it has a little bit more benefits. Most of the time.
Is it private health insurance that your employer will pay for half and you pay for the other half?
No, it's a mandatory public health insurance. They
that's
pay
the
the
one
half
that's halved.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So you might end up paying a little bit even less as soon as you reach the point of 68K to pay for your health insurance and get even more benefits. So it's like kind of crazy because the public health insurance costs you more, and more it costs you and your employer rather than the insurance which you are covering on your own terms.
Yeah, interesting. So the more money you make, the cheaper the health insurance is.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. And what kind of fees do you expect? So if I was an expat moving over to Germany right now, what kind of fees would I expect if I'm below 68K a year to pay for the mandatory health insurance?
Oh, but that you don't see. That is deducted directly from your salary. So you basically don't care about it because you don't pay that, more or less. But you pay actually that. You
just don't realize
literally pay. You just don't see it like you're paying it. But I pay, I think, 260, 270 euros per month for health insurance.
That's so
it is.
So expensive. Is that private or mandatory?
It's a mandatory, I think.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, but the good part is, as soon as you are insured, you can insure a whole entire family, and even if they don't work, free of charge, and they benefit from the same amount. And obviously, it depends on the insurance. I get also teeth cleaned for free. I get also my medicals like at a ridiculously low amount because if I compare it with Dubai, where you need to cover almost 60% of the cost on your own, here it's like a heaven. I mean,
That's a great thing about mainland Europe is that in a lot of countries, health insurance is mandatory. It's something that, again, I wasn't aware of before I moved to the Netherlands. And now that I have, because at first I was like, God damn it, I have to pay for health insurance. I never go to the doctors. And now I'm like, thank God, because it's so expensive if you don't have health insurance. And like in Ireland, health insurance, at least for Irish and European people, it's not mandatory. So it definitely, there's so many benefits to having mandatory health insurance. Even if it is a bit costly, it's a lot cheaper than having to actually pay medical fees when you need to pay them. Still, 210 is a lot.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. Your health, you can't put a price on your health. I mean, it's definitely one of those things.
What you need to expect is also like mandatory unemployment insurances, like, for example, which is also deducted from your own salary of the month. which gives you a quite nice cushion if you get laid off, not on your own terms. You can benefit from unemployment benefits of 60 up to 67% of your initial pay,
nice.
For a duration of 1 year. So you're not kind of ruined. You got laid off. Okay, then you have an adjustment period of time, and then you have 67% if you have kids, 65% if you don't have kids, to adjust to the new environment, which is also deducted from your monthly salary. And then
these
I
things
would
are kind of coming out of your salary. You don't necessarily see them coming from your salary. They just look like taxes. Okay.
Absolutely. They just look like taxes. And then what you expect is, you need to also expect is if you have a car or something like that, then you have obviously a car tax.
Yeah.
And what you gotta expect is when you get a kid, right? I mean, you have a kid, and I'm
Kids
talking
are expensive.
as a parent. Not as much when they're small, but it varies from a region, from a federal state to federal state. So, for example, in Bavaria, when you go to kindergarten, they are free of charge. But in Baden-Württemberg, like in the region where I live, you pay for kindergarten.
Okay.
So you can expect like anything about 100 euros per month for kindergarten. And we are talking about net. It's not a gross, it's net amount which you're paying.
Yeah.
And then schools are free of charge on the other hand. So it's like there are expenses which vary.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you go for food, for example, and you live in East Germany, you might get cheaper rates than in West Germany.
Yeah.
So you got like a higher food rates as well. And yeah, basically that's it. I mean, these are the expected costs.
So things like public transport and utilities, would they be expensive? Do you think they're expensive in Germany? What do you kind of expect?
I don't think so. I mean, I would love to have it the same like in Luxembourg, which is free of charge.
We all would.
yeah. But in Germany, I mean, I think they are fairly valued. If you're not traveling from one city to another city, but for that, they're looking for a solution as well at the moment. But I mean, it's not that expensive. In Bavaria, you can use 29 euro ticket, one full day, and you can enjoy the full day of ride for 29 euros. And then you've got like a nearby offers with Deutsche Bahn and so on and so forth. But for the public transport in Berlin, I don't remember how much I paid, but I paid approximately, I don't want to say the specific number, but it was bearable. I mean, because I used the public transport every day, and I could use the ticket not only to go to work and come back to work off the work period of the time as well, which gives me a good hint. In many companies in the big cities, they even provide you subsidized tickets for the public transport. So you should definitely ask that.
So public transport is a manageable cost. It's nothing crazy on a monthly basis, because obviously you lived in a big city like Berlin, so you have experience traveling every day. I'd imagine now you probably don't use public transport as much if you're in a quieter area.
No, you don't come across with the public transport that far.
Yeah, it's the same as where I live here. Like there's no public transport at all, so you have to have a car. But yeah, it's great that even in Berlin you have that public transport option, that you don't need to have a car, because I'd imagine having a car and parking and everything is quite expensive in Berlin.
It is absolutely, it is. Yeah.
So public transport is a bearable cost. What about utilities? Although you said earlier that they were included, TV and internet.
No, not really. TV, internet is not included. And if your heating is like with gas, not the central heating, but it's a gas heating, then you would need to expect, like with current gas prices hike, obviously, to pay that as well. And your electricity is also not included. The utilities which are included are your garbage disposal, your wind cleaning things, like, they clean your porch or walking ways, or utilities like cleaning of the building and so on and so forth. This kind of stuff is included, as well as the lighting in a general area of the building. But your own lighting, you would need to pay on your own. So electricity,
like gas prices, electricity. So sorry, I never realized you said earlier TV and internet, but that's like a tax that you pay when you register.
Exactly.
The broadcast fee. Okay, so that's different to what you actually pay for internet and TV. So
the internet and TV, you can count like approximately 29 euros. I mean, there are crazy prices as well, like was 45, 49, 50. But I choose, I come along with 100. I use Vodafone, for example, and I switch. I use websites to switch all the time to hunt for a better price, right?
Yeah.
And I come with €29.99 per month.
Yeah.
Quite nicely.
Yeah. That's easily come across.
Exactly.
And then for
And
electricity and gas, are the prices manageable as well? Obviously, gas.
it is manageable. Electricity, you can find the average use of electricity approximately 1,200 to 1,500 kilowatts per year for a single person, which is, in my opinion, too high. If you use it properly, you come with 700 to 900 kilowatts per year quite nicely. And then I pay €50 some. Maybe it has increased because of the price hike, but you can do that for €35. I mean, if things go back to the normal, €35 is more than enough for electricity. And for the gas, it depends on the usage, how heavy you heat, and so on and so forth. But
would it be more expensive to pay for like electricity and gases in cities such as Munich and Berlin and bigger cities, or is it just a fixed cost across the country?
It depends what kind of a package you take and how isolated your building is. It doesn't. It depends on the usage and not on the city. So if you are living in a more or less modern, newly built building, which has a higher rate per square,
more efficiency,
but they're more efficient on the other side. And if you live on a lower rate per square on an older building, they are less efficient. So you pay on utilities, like an additional utilities, like a gas more. Electricity is purely on the usage of the electricity.
Okay, interesting. It's good that it doesn't vary, I suppose. That's kind of what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I've gotten so many good tidbits from you. It's going to be great. I hope people who listen to this can take away so much, and kind of, because I think one of the biggest things, at least for me when I was moving, I didn't know what to expect cost wise. And I think having a kind of a grasp of what you can expect cost wise in terms of food costs, taxes, how much of a salary you actually should expect to earn, and rental costs, it's really good to have that knowledge before you actually move to the country that you're going to.
Yeah.
So you know what to expect. So again, to sum up some of the main points you made, you mentioned that 100K a year is considered to be a mid-range salary in Germany when you're speaking to Americans specifically.
Well, no, that's what the people said. Nobody earns 100K. I mean, you can get along with 50K quite nicely. You can get along with 37K quite nicely. Depends on the city where you live at. But I would, as I said, 3,700 is an average salary. If you earn 3,000 and you have a net salary at the base of 2,300, 2,500, this is considered to be a nice earner. So we're talking about approximately 48K net, more or less, to be a good earner.
Yeah.
And if you earn 35 to 38K per year, is like an average.
Yeah. So really, where you should be aiming for, or if you want to live in a big city like Munich, 3.7K gross per month might not do it just because of the cost of rent. But pretty much if you're living anywhere else, even in Berlin, that's probably a feasible amount to get by on each month.
Absolutely.
And then the government encouraged 1.7K a month, but you would argue that 2.1K a month net is probably more accurate to live a good life in Germany and not have to be uncomfortable in how you're living in Germany.
And we're talking about the single person. I mean, if you're talking about the family, obviously you would need to kind of add approximately 500 to 700 euros on top of that if your partner is not working or working only part-time. And then if you have kids, obviously you would need to add. But you need to understand with the kids is always a choice of the person, right? I mean, if you get the new clothes or old clothes, like used clothes, so you shop for cheaper products. And for the kid, you get money. You get like 210 euros per month net on your account to manage the kid. So the government actually pays you for the kid until they support you until they're 18. And if they are after 18 still studying, they support you until 25. So, you know, it's like if you add up all those money, it's like a huge amount.
So there are a lot of supports in place. And I suppose that kind of comes back to the taxes that you're paying, because like you said earlier, a lot of the taxes that you're paying, they come through in ways that you might not realize. Like you're paying taxes, it just comes from your salary, but you're also within that amount paying an unemployment tax that covers you if you ever do lose your job to 65% of your wage if you're single, and then 67% if you have a partner. And then
67 if you have a child.
If you have a child, sorry. If you have a child, partner makes no sense. If you have a child, not going to pay for your partner too. And then you also have your health insurance comes from your salary too. So there's some things that you would kind of expect to be extra costs, but actually are just kind of included in your taxes. If you do end up having to pay some extra taxes, it's typically for animal taxes. If you have an animal in the city, your admin fees are included. Sorry, your garbage, water, municipality taxes are typically included within your rental admin fees. And once you register for your address, you will typically have to pay a TV and internet tax, which is about €18 a quarter, even if you don't have a TV. Good point to make. Yeah. You also advise doing your tax report at the end of the year, because you can probably deduct and even probably get some taxes back for taxes that you might have overpaid from. And then also you will have church taxes, which you can avoid when you're registering if you tell them that you don't, if you're not Catholic, if you're not Christian, if you aren't religious at all, you can let them know and then you don't have to pay that tax. And then there are some taxes between West and Eastern Germany. If you're living in Western Germany, you might have to pay taxes. Eastern Germany, you won't, but it's very, very low, €5 to €7 a month. And then Bavaria, free of charge for kids to go to kindergarten, was it?
Yeah, pre-kindergarten period. So it's like,
and then in other areas, it's about €100 a month, which is realistically very affordable still.
For most, you need to find the space. I mean, they're not always available. That's probably the
trickiest part.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd imagine that is probably the trickiest part, is actually finding a place to put your child. But then even still, the country will also support you, give you €210 a month for your child to support. I would imagine those fees, but also just food, clothes, bring them around the place. And then public transport is affordable in cities in quieter areas, such as the place you live in. Not as accessible, so you might need to pay a car. What can people expect car tax and car insurance wise in Germany?
Depends. If you get like a small car, we're talking about Volkswagen, the smallest Volkswagen. I don't remember the name. Up, I think Volkswagen Up. I'm not sure the brand. You will pay like 67 euros per year. If you drive obviously a BMW or a car which is fancy and has an extensive amount of horsepower, then you pay more. Yeah. I pay approximately 190, I think, per year, which is pretty affordable. I mean, it's okay.
That's definitely affordable. You also mentioned electricity costs are pretty low. Obviously depends on your usage. You can definitely make it more affordable. It doesn't vary city to city. It varies depending on the buildings that you live in and the kind of infrastructure that is in place in terms of how efficient they are. You also mentioned food is cheaper in Eastern Germany than it is in Western Germany. And utilities, you can expect to pay gas prices, obviously, depending on usage. Gas prices are very difficult to put a number on because they vary so much depending on the entire world. But also you can expect to pay typically around €29 a month for TV and internet, and your garbage fees and your window cleaning and your garbage fees, window cleaning and other public area cleaning will typically be included in your...
They will be included, but you need to always pay attention to that. Your core rent price, which is like a per square meter, will not change unless otherwise your landlord increases that every year. Yeah. But your utility costs may vary depending on the costs accrued throughout the year. So it might be that you need to pay cover additional costs at the end of the year, or you might even get back the money. I mean, since 2010 to 2019, I always got back money. In 2020 till now, prices have increased and my utility costs have not skyrocketed, but they extensively increased. So I had to pay a little bit extra at the end of the year. So
you also, because you also mentioned there's like a cold amount per square meter. When you're renting an apartment in Germany, you'll pay a cold amount per square meter, and that's probably, I presume that would be pretty much a standard fixed cost unless your landlord increases it. And then everything else is admin fees, and they will vary depending on the state of the world.
That's why they use, that's what they use the terms like kalt and warm. Kalt means like it's a base amount, which is a fixed cost of your square meter, and then they use warm for the rest of the. It could look like 700 kalt, 900 warm, which means 700 to 900. So you need to pay attention what costs are mentioned on the contract. I wanted to say something I forgot now, which was a little bit important, but I think I covered quite a nice bit.
We've covered loads. You've given me so much good information. I'm sure there's going to be some expat out there praising you because you're after helping them answer so many questions that they
I
may
hope
have
so.
while moving over. I'm sure you have. Hopefully we have anyway. But thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. It was great to get you have so much knowledge about Germany. So it was really great to get someone so experienced in terms of careers, living in Germany, the cost of living, the salary expectations. It was great to have so much knowledge. So thank you so much for chatting to me and taking some time out of your day.